So we will discuss about the sources of the major air pollutants and what are the main effects on health. Okay, I think last time we have discussed all these effects, right? Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so actually,
Yes, ma'am.
in today's class, we will just review briefly what are the major air pollutants. Okay, so I think repeatedly, even in the previous class, we have mentioned related to carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, okay, ozone, greenhouses effect. So all those we will see. Okay, what are the main sources of all those, and what are the effects it has on health. Okay. So coming to the first one, it is the ozone. Actually, the ozone, this ozone, if you say this gases, actually, it can be found in two places. So whatever it is, the one which is found in the ground, okay, so it is all in the troposphere layer. So it is actually a major part of smoke whatever it happens, okay. And the another type of ozone, it is usually found and in the one with it is usually found covering the or protecting the earth from any UV lights, okay. So it acts as a protective layer in the upper atmosphere or the stratosphere, okay. So these are the two areas where we usually found the ozone gas, okay. So one in the lower, okay, atmosphere, and one in the upper. So the one in the upper is actually the one which really protects us from all those ultraviolet rays and all. I think you must have heard of this, okay. So how prolonged exposure or prolonged pollutant air pollution, it causes the layer to become very thin. And if that layer becomes more and more thin, so what will happen? So all the harmful UV lights, it will be directly, okay, reflected to the earth, and the people will be prone to various type of cancer, eye problems, so many problems or ill effect it can have, okay, on the human being as well as plants and animals, okay. So what are the main sources of this ozone, if we say, okay. So mostly this ozone, it is not directly created, but it can be formed by gases like nitrogen oxides and also other organic compounds when it is mixed in the sunlight, okay. And this ozone layer, it is mostly found in the summer. And if you say nitrogen oxide, so where we get this nitrogen oxide, mostly if you burn any gasoline, coal, or any other fossil fuels like petrol, diesel, and all this, okay? And if you see other the volatile organic compounds, so these actually they comes from various factories, okay. All those factories and all, they produce this various volatile organic compounds. So what are the main effects of ozone, okay. So actually the ozone which is present in the ground, they have got many health problems, like it can cause asthma attacks among people who have already have asthma, okay. It might cause them to initiate asthma attacks, and also it can cause sore throats, coughing, breathing difficulties, okay. And it can also lead to any form of premature death, okay. And it can also affect not only the human being, as well as it can cause harmful effects to the plants as well as to the crops, okay. And likewise, if the greenhouse gases effect becomes more and more, and if the ozone layer becomes thinner and thinner, like I have said, so the people also will be, so the UV lights will be directly reflecting to the earth, and people will have various form of cancer, okay. So the second major air pollutant is carbon monoxide, okay. So actually this carbon monoxide, it is mostly formed if you burn any fuel, and automobiles, actually they are the main source of producing this carbon monoxides, and it cannot be seen or smelled, okay. And this actually this carbon monoxide, what happens, so it usually causes constriction of the blood vessels. So that is the main reason whenever a person inhale carbon monoxides for a very prolonged period of time, it causes constriction of your blood vessels, as well as it causes the decrease in the oxygen supply, okay. So that is the main reason, like whenever people are exposed to prolonged exposure to carbon monoxide, they used to faint. And even those people who already have any heart problem, they will have heart attack because the because of prolonged this one decrease in the oxygen supply in the entire body, as it causes the constriction of the blood vessels, okay. And the exposure to carbon monoxide, okay, what are the effects? It causes dizzy, as well as it makes the people very tired, obviously, because why they have those, because of the lack of oxygen supply, okay. And it also causes them to have headaches, and if it is present in a very high concentration, it might even leads to death, okay. So elderly people who have already have any form of heart diseases, they are actually becoming, they need, if they are exposed to this carbon monoxide, they will be need they will be needing to be hospitalized, or they need to get oxygen therapy and all those. Okay, so this is about the carbon monoxides. So the third one is called as the nitrogen dioxide. So this is actually a reddish brown gas that comes from the burning of fossil fuels, and it has got a very strong smells when it is present at a very high levels. Okay, and the sources, if it says, it usually come for the power plants as well as the various factories and even cars. Okay, and this nitrogen dioxide actually it is formed in two ways. Whenever the nitrogen in the fuel is burned, or when nitrogen in the air it reacts with the oxygen at a very high temperature, then it can also be formed in composition to it can also act as a main uh, this one the sources of forming of this ozone, acid rains and all those. So it can combine with uh, rains, and it can also causes acid rains. And as we know, acid rain, it causes so much destruction of building. It can cause destruction of plant. Okay, and it is also very harmful for the human being. So what are the effects of this nitrogen dioxides? Okay, so high level of this nitrogen dioxide, it can cause people to have cough, okay, and also they can also have shortness of breath. And people who are exposed to nitrogen dioxide for a very long time have a very high chance of getting respiratory infections. So if you see overall, if as it is an air related to air pollution, so the major system which is usually affected is your respiratory system only. Okay, so in most of the cases of the air pollutants, so they usually cause this respiratory problems, be it asthma, be it your respiratory problem, okay, be it your respiratory infections, all those. And also, how can it affect? It can also combine with the it can also react in the atmosphere, and it can also cause the acid rains, which can harm both the plants and the animals. Okay, and also cause destruction of various buildings, monuments, and all those. Okay, so the next pollutant is called as the particulate matter. So whenever we say particulate matters, so these are, it can be solid or liquid matters that are being suspended in the air. Okay, so to remain in the air, the particles usually it must be less than 0.5 or 0, 0.1 millimeters wide, and also be small as 0.0005 mm. Okay, so what are the main sources of this particulate matter actually? So this, it can be divided into two types: the coarse particles and the fine particles. So what are the coarse particles? So these are usually formed from road dust, or from spray, or from any construction sites. Okay, and the fine particles are usually formed by burning any from automobiles or any power plants. Okay, so the main effects of this particulate matters is that it can cause some problems in the lungs, as well as it can cause some various other health problems. And some of these problems is like asthma attacks. Okay, in people who have already have a previous history of asthma, it can cause other respiratory problems like difficulty in breathing, and it might also cause the premature death. Okay, so the next one, it is called as a sulfur dioxides. Okay, so this sulfur dioxide actually uh, it is a gas which cannot be seen or smelled. Okay, at lower level, but it can have a very rotten smell when it is present at a very high level. Okay, and the main sources are usually it can be formed from burning any coal or oil in the power plants, and it can also be form from various factories, like suppose factories who are making chemicals, paper, or fuel. Okay, so even just like this nitrogen dioxides, so even sulfur dioxide also, what happened, it used to combine in the atmosphere, and it can cause acid rains, as well as it can cause some particles. Okay, so the main effects of sulfur dioxide, actually what happened, it can cause people to have asthma or emphysema. Okay, so emphysema, what happened? Emphysema, it is that disease which causes the damage of the alveoli or the air sac. Okay, so whenever there is any damage in the alveoli or the air sac, the people will have this respiratory problems like breathing difficulty and all. Okay, and it also cause, apart from that, it cause irritation of the eye, it can cause irritation of the nose, it can cause throat. Okay, and it can also cause damage to the trees, buildings, crops and all. Especially when it form as acid rain, it can cause all those damage to the plants as well as to the buildings. Okay, so the next pollutant is the toxic air pollutants. Okay, so these toxic air pollutants, when we say, they are a number of chemicals that are known to be suspended, or they are known to be suspected to cause cancer. Okay, some of these air pollutants are like arsenic, okay, asbestos, benzene, dioxin. Okay, so these are some of the toxic air pollutants. And the main sources is that, and each of the toxic air pollutant, they come from a very slightly different source. All of them, that doesn't come from the same source, but many are mostly where it is created in some factories like chemical plant, or whenever there is any fossil fuel are burned. Okay, some of the toxic air pollutants like asbestos and formaldehyde, it can be found in building materials, and it can also lead to indoor air problems. And many of the toxic air pollutants can also enter the food and water supplies. So the main effect, actually, what it can cause various form of cancer. Okay, and some of the toxic air pollutant can also cause birth defects in newborn. Okay, and other, it can also cause irritation of the skin as well as eye irritation, and also breathing problems or breathing difficulties. So the next one is stratospheric ozone depleters. So these are some chemicals that can destroy the ozone in the stratosphere. That's why only it is called. So they have the so these if they are present in a very high amount, these chemicals, they can cause destruction of the ozone layer. Okay, in the stratosphere layer. So these chemicals, what are these chemicals? These are certain chemicals like chlorofluorocarbons or CFCs, okay, halogens and other compounds that include chlorine or bromine. Okay, so these are those chemicals which, if they are present in a very adequate quantity, it can cause the destruction of your ozone layer. So the main sources are actually the air conditioners. Okay, that's why we always used to say, right? Air conditioners, we might feel fresh and room, we might feel good, but actually it is very harmful for environment. Okay, because they are the main source of production of this chlorofluorocarbons. Air conditioners, your refrigerators. Okay, so they can also be found in aerosol cans as well as in fire extinguishers. Okay. So other stratospheric ozone depleters are used in solvents, as they are some of them, they are also used as solvents in the industries. Okay. So those can also add up as a source of this one, stratospheric ozone depleters. So what are the effects? As you all know, if the ozone layer is, or if the ozone layer in the stratosphere, if it becomes more and more thinner, so it can cause people to be exposed to ultraviolet radiation, and this in the ultimately it will lead to skin cancer, it can cause eye problem, and also it can cause destruction of plants as well as animals. Okay, so the next one we will see is the greenhouse gases. Okay, this one also, I think if you remember, I have already even talked in the last class about greenhouse effect. Okay, like naturally what happened, whatever gas enters inside the earth, some of it will be observed and some it will be reflected back. Okay, but what happened in greenhouse effect? The gases, it remains in the earth for a very prolonged period of time, or it becomes more and more trapped. Okay, and it causes this greenhouse effect. Okay, so the gases that can stay in the air for a long time, and it can warm up the planet by trapping the sunlight. So this is called as a greenhouse effect, because the gases act like the glass in a greenhouse. So some of the important greenhouse gases are your carbon dioxide, okay, your carbon monoxide, methane, this nitrous oxide. So these are the main gases which form this greenhouse effects. Okay, that why we call that greenhouse, because it acts as a covering of the earth. Okay, so and it produces many forms of effects like your global warming. Okay, so many effects it can have on health. So the main sources actually is a carbon dioxide, which is the most important greenhouse gases, and it comes from burning fossil fuel, from the cars, from the power plant, houses, industries. Okay, and this methane, how it is produced mostly from fossil fuels, and it can also comes naturally, okay, from natural sources like cows and rice paddies. And this nitrous oxide mostly comes from the industrial sources. So what are the effects of this greenhouse gases? So actually it can cause lots of damage to the environment. Okay, so even at present we are having this so much of global warming issues all over in which it can cause so many harmful effects in the environment. Okay, then it can also lead to extreme temperatures. Okay, higher in the sea level, because the ice, they are melting, yes or no? So the ice level is becoming increasing and increasing. Then also it can cause changes in the forest composition. Okay, it can cause damage to the land. So actually, so many other ill effects it can cause. Okay, if the greenhouse gases, if it becomes more and more, or if the greenhouse effect, if it becomes more and more, so it can cause so many environmental as well as uh, environmental health issues as well as the human health issues. Okay, so these are actually what are the main major pollutants. Okay, like ozone. Okay, which I've said we have two types, which is found in two places, one in the lower and one in the upper. Okay, then the carbon monoxides, then your nitrogen dioxides, which forms acid rain, as well as it can cause your people to have all those respiratory problem and all. Okay, then your particulate matters. Okay, so these are those matters which are suspended in the air, those are called as the particulate matters. Then the sulfur dioxides, which also like nitrogen dioxide, it can react in the atmosphere and it can form acid rains, okay, which cause destruction of plant, animals, and all those. Then your toxic air pollutants. So these are like all those major, these are the major air pollutants which usually causes cancer, and it comes from various sources. Okay. Then your stratospheric ozone depleters. These are those which causes the depletion of the ozone layer in the stratosphere and the greenhouse gases. Okay, so these are actually what are the major air pollutants. Okay, what are the sources and what are the effects. Okay, so these are some of the chemical pollutants or what are the effect. Okay, like lead, what happened? It usually causes your brain damage and your behavioral disorders. And this beryllium, it causes lung disease. Then cadmium, it causes also produces various form of kidney and lung diseases. Mercury, actually, it induces tremors and various form of skin eruption. Then nickel, it causes dizziness and nausea. And carbon monoxides, what happens? So like I've said before, so it causes the constriction of the blood vessels. Okay, so it also prevents blood from carrying oxygen, and it can cause symptoms like headache, dizziness, nausea, fainting. Okay, then heart attack in person who already have any previous history of heart disease. Okay, so now we will see how can we monitor the air pollution. Okay, so we have already seen what are the various sources of air pollution. Okay, so what are the effects it has on health. So now we will see how can we monitor the air pollution. So actually in India we have this air pollution monitoring. It is done by the Central Pollution Control Board. Okay, so this Central Pollution Control Board, so they have been the one which have been formed. It has been formed since 1990s. Okay, so these Central Pollution Control Board, they are the one who will be evaluating or the air pollution quality. Okay, or what are the air pollution index and all. So this air pollution index, what is it? Actually, it indicates what is the severity of pollution. So in order to measure this, we also have another form of index which is called the air quality index. So whenever we say air quality index means it usually indicates what is the quality of air, okay, which is present in a particular area. So it has got so many values or some this one ranges are there. Okay, so if suppose if the so suppose if the air, okay, if the air quality index, if it comes in between 0 to 15, so the quality of air, it is indicated as good. Okay, so this one, that means the people will, it has minimum impact on the health. Okay, and if the quality of air, it is 51 to 100, that is called as satisfactory. And if it is 101 to 200, that is called as moderate air pollution. And